I thought my husband and our neighbor were just working on a shared garden project. Then I noticed he'd start showering right after coming home. Our son asked, "Why is Dad always smiling when he's with her?" I found a playlist labeled with her name. Love songs. Private jokes. One voice memo, "I wish we didn't have to sneak around." My husband denied everything, until she showed up drunk on our porch screaming, "Tell her. Or I will." I'm Marla. I'm 41 and I live in Traverse City, Michigan. I've been here my whole life. I met Joel when I was 24, married him at 26. He's an electrician. I used to think he was honest. Steady. The kind of man you build a life with. We've got one son, David. He's 9. He loves Legos, ice cream, and thinks his dad is a superhero. Or, he did. Joel and I bought this little house right after we got married. Quiet street, decent neighbors, nothing fancy. The kind of place you picture when you think about settling down. For the first 10 years, everything felt normal. Not perfect, but normal. Joel worked long hours, I worked part-time at the library so I could be home with David after school. We had pizza Fridays. We went camping in the summer. That kind of life. Then Melissa moved in next door. She and her husband bought the house last year. Her husband was never around. Traveled for work. She was always outside, walking her dogs, trimming her bushes, waving too much. She was in her 30s, maybe younger, blonde, always in tight leggings and little tank tops even when it was cold out. The kind of woman who makes other women feel uneasy, but you can't say why without sounding jealous. Joel noticed her right away. He didn't say anything weird at first. Just that she was friendly. Then one afternoon I got home from grocery shopping and found the two of them chatting over the fence like old friends. Laughing. Laughing hard. Joel had this weird smile on his face. I hadn't seen that smile in years. I asked him about it. He said, "We're thinking about putting in a shared garden. There's that strip of land between the backyards. Might as well use it." At first, I thought it was a nice idea. Joel was always stressed. Work wore him down. I figured a little gardening project might help him relax. And Melissa? Maybe she just needed a friend. So I said okay. That was my first mistake. Every weekend, Joel and Melissa were out there, digging, measuring, planting, building those stupid wooden beds. At first, I watched from the kitchen window. They were always laughing. Sometimes she'd touch his arm when she talked. Once I saw her flick something off his shirt. I told myself not to overthink it. Then the shower started. Joel would come in from the garden, barely say hello, and head straight to the bathroom. Long, steamy showers. Longer than after work. He'd change clothes. Do laundry twice a week. I started finding damp towels bunched up in the corner of the laundry room. Socks tucked behind the dryer. One day, I found a second toothbrush in the downstairs bathroom. A pink one. He said it was for guests. That same week, David said something that made my stomach twist. We were eating breakfast. Joel had already left. David was buttering his waffle and looked up at me with those big innocent eyes and said, "Why is Dad always smiling when he's with Miss Melissa?" I didn't answer him. I just stared down at the table. That was the moment I knew something was wrong. That night, after Joel went to sleep, I went digging. He's not great with tech. Same password for everything. I got into his Spotify first. Found a playlist called 4M. My stomach dropped. It wasn't just music. It was them. Their songs. Songs with lyrics like, "When I'm with you, I forget the world and you're my secret in the dark." I recognized one track, it was from our wedding. A song we danced to while my grandmother clapped from her wheelchair. That's when I really knew. I kept digging. Found a hidden folder in a cloud account linked to his email. There were photos, some of her in workout clothes, sweaty, grinning, holding a trowel in the garden. Some of them were just her face. Then I found the voice memo. I played it. Melissa's voice, soft and low. I wish we didn't have to sneak around. I wish we could just be. You make me feel like I'm 20 again. Like I matter. I love you, Joel. I felt like I was going to throw up. I sat on the bathroom floor with that recording playing over and over in my ears. When Joel got home, I didn't say anything. I couldn't. I watched him. I watched the way he avoided my eyes. How he touched my shoulder like I was just someone passing by. I wanted to scream. 3 days later, she showed up drunk on our porch. It was late. David was asleep. I was finishing dishes when someone started banging on the door like the place was on fire. I opened it and there she was, Melissa. No coat, hair a mess, eyes red, clearly wasted. She pointed at me and said, "Tell her. Tell her or I will." Joel came running into the room like he'd heard a bomb go off. His face went white. "Melissa, stop. You're drunk," he said, but she pushed past me into the living room. "She doesn't know, does she?" Melissa screamed. "She doesn't know how many times you told me you were gonna leave her. You said you didn't love her, Joel. Tell her." I stood there, frozen. The room spun. Joel tried to grab her arm but she shoved him off. "You're such a coward," she shouted, then looked at me. "You think he's loyal? He's been in my bed more times than I can count. Ask him what we did in the garden shed." "Go on, ask." Joel yelled, told her to get out. She eventually left, stumbling down the steps and into the night. I didn't sleep. I couldn't. I didn't even cry. I sat in the living room with the lights off, holding that pink toothbrush. Joel tried to deny it. Swore she was drunk. Said she made it all up. But I showed him what I found. The messages. The playlist. The memo. He finally admitted it. Joel begged me not to tell anyone. Said he wanted to fix things. Said it was a mistake. Just a bad choice that got out of hand. I asked him one question. "How long?" He didn't want to answer. I asked again. "That time," he said, "it started in June. It was January. 7 months. While I packed David's lunches, while I folded his clothes, while I smiled at Melissa across the fence, 7 months. He swore it was over now. That she meant nothing. That it was just sex. I didn't say anything. I just looked at him and realized I didn't even know who I was married to. The next day, I dropped David off at school and drove to my sister's house. I told her everything. She sat there, stunned, then said something I didn't expect. "You're not gonna let this go, are you?" No. I wasn't. Joel thought I was just going to move past it. Pretend. Heal. Go to therapy. Maybe even rebuild. But that night, I started planning. I didn't want just a divorce. I didn't want to be a victim. I wanted him to hurt. Like I did. Melissa stopped showing up in the garden. Her husband came back into town a week later. Poor guy had no idea. I found his work email on her Facebook and sent him the playlist, the memo, a couple of screenshots. I never heard back, but I noticed he moved out a month later. Took the dogs too. I waited. I played the part. Joel slept in the guest room while we worked things out. I made his coffee. I folded his shirts. I even slept with him one night just to keep the lie going. And while I did that, I was gathering everything. I made copies of the messages. Saved them on a drive. Took screenshots of every piece of evidence. The photos, the voicemails, the timestamps. I opened a secret bank account. Moved money. Took out a P.O. box. Talked to a lawyer, then another one. Found out Joel had a 401k with more in it than I thought. Found out his work truck was registered in both our names. He had no idea what I was doing. He thought I was healing. Then I started talking to people at his work. Joel had a buddy, Mike. They'd worked together for 10 years. Mike's wife and I had always gotten along. I invited her over for coffee and casually asked about their company's code of conduct. She laughed and said, "You mean the part about not messing around with people on job sites?" Yeah. Joel always used to joke about that rule. That's when it clicked. The garden project wasn't all. Joel had been doing work on Melissa's house. Electrical upgrades. A new breaker panel. He never told me about that part. So I dug deeper. Melissa had written him a check last August. I found the stub in his toolbox. It was made out to Joel M. in the amount of $1,200. I called the bank. Confirmed the deposit. He'd been doing side work for her. Probably while I thought he was working overtime. I printed that too. The next move was bold, but I was ready. I called Melissa. I told her I wasn't angry. That I just wanted to understand. She sounded nervous. She asked if I was recording her. I laughed. Told her no. Said I just wanted closure. That maybe we could meet and talk. She agreed. Said she owed me that. We met at a coffee shop. She wore sunglasses inside. Barely touched her drink. She told me things I didn't even ask. She said Joel had told her he was unhappy. That I was cold. That we hadn't had sex in years. That he was trapped. That he stayed for David, but wanted out. That he would leave me after the holidays. I stared at her. Didn't say a word. Then she said something else. I always felt guilty. But he said you were mean. Controlling. He made it sound like you hated him. That's when I stood up and said, "You know what? You deserve each other." Then I left. Later that week, I put everything in a binder and handed it to my lawyer. She looked through the whole thing and said, "He won't know what hit him." But I wasn't done yet. I waited until Joel's birthday. He always wanted a big breakfast. Pancakes, bacon, orange juice in the fancy glasses. I made it all. Set the table. Put a little gift bag in his spot. He smiled when he came in, surprised. Said, "Thanks, babe. This means a lot." I said, "Open the card." He did. Inside was one line, "You've got 30 days to move out." Underneath was the business card of my lawyer. He blinked at it. "Wait, what is this?" I walked over, set the binder in front of him, and said, "Everything. In one place. Copies have already been filed." He flipped through it. His face turned white. Then red. He looked up. "You don't have to do this." I said, "But I want to." He moved out that weekend. After Joel moved out, things got quiet, for a minute. David had questions, of course. I kept it simple. "Daddy and I aren't living together right now. Sometimes adults need space to figure things out." He cried the first night Joel didn't tuck him in. I held him until he fell asleep. Then I cried too, but not because I missed Joel. I cried because of the lie we'd all been living under. Because my son thought his dad was a hero, and now I knew better. Joel stayed with a friend for a while. Then, about 3 weeks later, I found out he'd moved in with her. Melissa. He didn't even try to hide it. That's when the next twist hit. I was standing in line at the grocery store when my phone buzzed. An email. From the school. Subject line, "Concern regarding David." I opened it. Apparently, David had told a classmate something that triggered a report to the school counselor. The message said he seemed distressed and mentioned a woman screaming at his house and his dad sleeping in another house now. I called the school immediately. The counselor said David wasn't in trouble, but she suggested therapy. Said he was having trouble processing the separation. That night, I sat him down. Told him the truth, but not all of it. I said Daddy had made choices that hurt Mommy, and now we were living separately. He asked me if Daddy loved someone else. I didn't lie. Yes, I said. But that doesn't mean he doesn't love you. David stared at the floor and said, I wish you were the one who left, not him. That crushed me. But I didn't let it show. I put him in therapy. And I went too. My therapist said I had every right to be angry. That betrayal this deep doesn't just fade. That revenge, when done right, can be a kind of healing. I told her I already had plans. See, I had a backup drive with everything, one I didn't give to the lawyer. And I wasn't just going after Joel. Melissa worked remotely for a tech startup out of Chicago. On a whim, I searched their company's HR policies. Turns out they had strict rules about personal conduct affecting professional reputation. So I wrote a polite, detailed email to her HR department. I attached screenshots of her voice memo, the messages where she talked about sneaking around while her husband was traveling, and one photo of her in Joel's lap on the back porch. Timestamped, of course. I ended it with a simple line, I'm sharing this not to be malicious, but because I believe companies have the right to know when their employees are involved in behavior that could affect their judgment, reliability, or legal standing. I sent it. Didn't hear back for a while. But about 2 weeks later, I saw her LinkedIn page had changed. No more job listed. I didn't gloat. I didn't celebrate. I just exhaled. Then came the letter from Joel's lawyer. He wanted joint custody. After everything. After what he did. After destabilizing our whole home and confusing our child, he wanted to split custody 50-50. I nearly ripped the letter in half. I called my lawyer. She said, let him try. He just gave us a new reason to use your file. Let the court see what kind of man he really is. We scheduled the court date. And then the next twist hit me in the gut. One afternoon, I came home and noticed my front door slightly open. Nothing was missing. Nothing broken. But something felt off. I checked my laptop. The files were gone. The revenge folder, the saved documents. All deleted. But I had backups. Multiple. He hadn't gotten far. I changed the locks that night. 2 days later, Joel called. Said he just wanted to talk. Asked if we could meet at a diner halfway between our houses. I said fine. He looked worn down. Pale. Hair messy. Like the weight of what he did was finally sitting on his shoulders. He said Melissa was difficult. Controlling. That she'd thrown a mug at him during an argument. That she was mad he wasn't divorced yet. That she might be pregnant. I didn't react. I let him talk. He said, I miss you, Marla. I made a huge mistake. I took a sip of my coffee, then said, mistakes are tripping on the stairs. You built a second life and lived in it. He tried to touch my hand. I pulled it away. Then I said, by the way, if you ever come into my house again without permission, I'll press charges. I have a camera now. He froze. What are you talking about? You know what I'm talking about. He left without finishing his food. But I knew then, it wasn't over. He was unraveling. About a week before our court date, Joel tried one more time. This time, he sent David a video message. A long one. I found it on David's tablet after he left it charging in the kitchen. It was Joel, sitting in what looked like Melissa's living room, saying things like, I miss you, buddy. I hope one day we can live together again, full time. Daddy's trying to make things right. I'm not the bad guy here. I played it twice. He was planting seeds, making himself look like the victim. That night, I sat David down again. I told him he could love his dad. He should. But I also told him that adults are responsible for their actions. That no matter what someone says, what they do is what really matters. The next day, I sent that video to my lawyer. Then the court date came. Joel showed up in a wrinkled shirt and cheap tie. Melissa came too, but she sat in the back row. She didn't look smug anymore. She looked like a woman who regretted everything. My lawyer laid it all out: the affair, the messages, the deception, the unauthorized entry into my house, the attempt to sway our son through a secret video message. We didn't even need the photo of him and Melissa in the garden shed, but we had it ready just in case. His lawyer tried to paint him as a flawed but loving father who wanted to be in his son's life. Said he made mistakes, but had learned from them. Then I took the stand. I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I just told the truth. Clear, steady, and with all the receipts. At one point, the judge looked directly at Joel and said, "You expect joint custody while living with the woman you cheated on your wife with, who was involved in a domestic incident and possibly violated employment codes. This is what you consider a stable home for your son?" Joel didn't answer. He looked at the floor. In the end, the judge gave me full physical custody. Joel got supervised visits every other weekend, only if he took parenting classes and continued therapy. When it was over, Joel walked out without looking at me. Melissa followed him, crying. 3 days later, I got a message from a mutual friend. Joel had moved out of Melissa's place. She wasn't pregnant after all. She had lied to keep him around. He'd found out. They fought. The police got involved. Another neighbor called it in. Joel got charged with disturbing the peace. He lost his job 2 weeks after that. Apparently his boss didn't like hearing from Melissa's ex-husband, the one I emailed, who was now threatening to sue Joel for doing unlicensed electrical work on their home. The cherry on top? The state came after Joel for back taxes on those side jobs he never reported. Melissa had paid him under the table, but he never reported the income. The paper trail I'd saved, the check stub, the deposit, it all came back to bite him. Last I heard, Joel was living with his mom in Grand Rapids, trying to get contract work again. But no one wants to hire a guy with a court record, bad references, and a reputation for lying. David doesn't ask much about him anymore. When he visits, he seems quiet. Distant. I keep things steady. Peaceful. We eat dinner at the table. We go for walks. We sleep easy now. As for me? I don't regret a thing. Joel thought I'd just cry and crumble. That I'd move on while he played house next door with a woman who thought braless flirting and whispered lies could replace a marriage. Instead, I took everything he gave me, every cheat, every lie, every smug smirk, and I used it like a knife. Quiet. Careful. Deep. He ruined our family. So I ruined his life. Fair trade.